Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. Thank you guys for joining us. So, we want to check in just to take a look at what's happening out there in the tropics. And we see Hurricane Grace has reemerged from the Yucatan Peninsula. It is currently a Category 1, going to likely be a Category 2 when it impacts the Mexican mainland and goes inward very close to Mexico City. Now, this is interesting. Now, Dabu put out a video. One of you guys sent it to me. And he was just showing an interesting thing with Hurricane Henri. And it reminded me of what we had seen years back with Hurricane Harvey, where Harvey all of a sudden kind of ballooned up and it then literally did change directions. And it was fascinating because BP Earthwatch, who he did lose the channel and had to restart. And I'm not sure of the timing on that in relation to when that video came out. It really looked like there was something that was shot up into the air that affected the storm. And so, check out Dabu today because he does have a video up showing something that looks similar. As we look at the track, it looks like it's heading straight for New York City. How about that? Straight for New York City as potentially a Category 1 hurricane, but in these times again, who knows? Who knows what can happen? And I just wanted to throw this in because originally, really what I want to talk about is how things are crumbling in so many ways. Here you see a photo shows nearly empty military transport plane leaving Kabul as ex-Royal Marine tears into evacuation screw-up. So this plane's on its way home, but there's hardly anybody in it, and there's still a ton of people that would love to be in it. But what's really going on here when quote unquote official sources are saying one thing, but everybody else that's there is saying something else? As we see from Disclosed TV, just in, British, French, and German troops are crossing Taliban lines to rescue their citizens in Kabul, putting pressure on JB to expand the evacuation. Over here, ABC host, the president has said he has no intelligence that Americans have not been able to get to the airport in Kabul. Now, the question is obviously, does that square what the reporting is seeing on the ground? And the reporter said, just totally not. Just totally not. And here we see Joe JB gets busted on pre-screened questions when NPR reporter changes it at the last second. And so Joe doesn't seem to know where to go. He doesn't seem to know where to go. A lot of people have been talking about the fact that he hasn't been really taking any questions anyway. And then, of course, you have the pre-screened ones, the softballs, lobbed on in like you would lob in for your kid. The fact is, guys, as many people are starting to figure out, this planet has been enshrouded in a darkness. This darkness has been enshrouding the planet all of our lives. It's just coming to the forefront now. More people can see it for what it is now. Maybe we were a little too innocent in bygone ages. Maybe we were a little too naive. Or maybe, as we've been saying on this channel the whole time, these things just can't be hidden anymore. You just can't hide the truth anymore. There's an awakening going on. They knew it was coming. As we've talked about and shared, declassified CIA, FBI documents that show when cosmic radiation increases, which we're having now with the decrease of the magnetosphere due to the grand solar minimum and also the magnetic pole reversal, as well as the fact that, and this is the primary thing, we are in what was called by people in the 80s the photon belt. and the 90s, and still people will use that term. Now, I remember hearing that term back in the 80s and the 90s, and everybody thought, well, if you're talking about the photon belt, you're a raving lunatic. You know, you're probably running around throwing down chicken bones trying to read the future. Or maybe you're reading tea leaves. Or maybe you're reading tarot cards or people's palms. Or maybe you're reading their auras now. Think about how all that has changed. You know, 40 years ago, when I was a teenager, just to talk of chakras, if you ask 10 people, what are chakras? What? Maybe 1 out of 10 would know. I bet you now 6, 7 out of 10 would know, at least somewhat. It's because there's more light coming onto the planet, exposing the darkness that's controlled the planet for a very long time. This is part of why everything that we see going on is going on. It's all about maintaining the ignorance, maintaining the illusion, maintaining the LIES. We saw the eclipses. Well, we actually saw one of the 2 great American eclipses in 2017 in August. You know, it's been 4 years, just over 4 years. Times changed. Things have escalated. The darkness is pushing forward. The darkness is enshrouded and gets its power from staying hidden. As we said, this is more a world of corporations having the power than it is nations. Nation states are handy, useful tools in keeping humanity segregated, divided, and warring amongst itself. The real power lies with the corporations, at least as far as the system itself goes, because we are in this monetary system, which is all about maintaining a feudal society. It might not seem to some to be a feudal society, but I think it's appearing to more and more every day that we're still in a feudal society. There are the ladies and the lords, the upper class, and really the creme de la creme. We're really talking about your billionaire class that really controls the show. And they do it through certain agencies, given the guise that they're all for the greater good, committed to improving the state of the world. There must be parentheses somewhere for the select few, for the 1/10 of 1%. I just didn't see the parentheses. We see certain people all the time, the apparent leadership of this globe, apparent, that work through the various groups, organizations, power structures that be. They have their agendas out there. We see them being carried out. Yet we don't really see the true power brokers. And I'm not talking either about certain families like the ROTHS Childs or the Rockefellers and the myriad of other families. And I'm not even talking about beings like the Black Pope and others behind the scenes. The real power is not what you've seen. The real power is what you haven't seen. And while, yes, the Bible that we have is given to us basically from a Roman emperor who was all about conquering and keeping his people in subjugation. After all, he killed his wife and firstborn to do that. Or the King James Version of the Bible, which is given to us by the head of all the Masonic lodges in England and Scotland. And as I've said before, if you really want to get into the scripture that comes out of the Abrahamic tradition, you know, or at least lineage that's tied to it, then get into the stuff that was burned by the power structure. Why watch mainstream TV? Most people recognize mainstream TV is biased. Well, this is mainstream religion. Can we not see that? But there are truths in it. There are truths, there are things hidden. You know, we've talked about, okay, well, it's assumed that, again, Christ was 33, right, at his death. Why 33 again? Well, you know, 33 vertebrae in the human spine, which is, again, talking about ascension. Jacob's ladder, it's all about ascension. Where did he wrestle with God? At pineal. I mean, how more obvious can we be? 7 lantern stands, talking about the 7 chakras. It's talked about openly in Taoism and in many other traditions in the East. It had to be under the surface in the West, otherwise you would be boiled alive, drawn and quartered, or burned at the stake. But there is truth, and we have to look at the bigger definition here. Stop thinking in archaic language because it was archaic times, and start thinking in terms of modern day language. But yes, there are spiritual truths here. Ephesians 6:12, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Okay, so not flesh and blood. Well, 3D is flesh and blood. What's 4D? It's not flesh and blood. And so this is where most of the wrestling is going on in 4D. And the dark evil entities that reside in the lower 4D realms, the lower astral realms, which resemble the hells described of by many different traditions. These are the places of Dante's Inferno, for instance, where these negative beings make their abode. So again, not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers. There's a little clue there, guys. Flesh and blood is not the rulers. Those that you see walking about in flesh and blood suits, like the presidents, they're not the rulers. Neither is the G7. Neither is the WEC. Neither are any of them that are in the UN or any of these other alphabet soups. Those aren't the rulers. Cosmic powers. It's right there. Cosmic powers. Not earthly powers, cosmic. And so, you know, many people get caught up in just everything is a demon. And we talked about that. It's like labeling everything that flies a sparrow. It's just not accurate. There's many different types of beings. Interdimensional beings, extraterrestrial beings. Yes, there's demonic. Yes, there's angelic. There's all of the above. Many different cosmic powers, because the ones that are ruling didn't come from here. And it is a darkness that we find ourselves in. Spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Well, when you would say to somebody, where's the heavens? They always point up, don't they? They don't point in their heart. But that's the real key, is within. They point up. Well, the heavens are up there. And so, you know, we get the picture again, we get this either or. Were there quote unquote ancient aliens, beings that came here using ships? Yes. But there's also beings that use technology that's not of ships. They're using more spiritual technologies. They're able to do things like project themselves, utilize natural wormholes, and come to these places, come to all different places. For though we walk in the flesh, we are not waging a war according to the flesh. The weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but have divine power to destroy strongholds. We destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and take every thought captive to obey Christ. So this is where things have been twisted by the dark side, because with 30,000 different versions of Christianity, for instance, which one of them has the proper dogma? And somebody made the comment yesterday that's so simple, and it's been made many times. God is simply love. Ultimately, kind of easy. Anything that comes from peace, love, compassion, brotherhood, sisterhood, That's all you got to focus on. Not dogma. Do I have to be completely immersed in baptism for it to work, or is it okay if I just get water splashed on my forehead? Do I have to be anointed with oil? Does it have to be on a Sunday? Or should I observe the Sabbath on Saturday? Well, what is God's proper name? Am I okay calling him Jehovah or Yahweh? Does he have a name? According to the Tao point of view, anything that could be named is not the Tao. It's not the source. You're talking about a finite concept. Anything that could be named is a finite concept. That's a clue there, because the true source is everywhere. Omnipresent, it's present everywhere. Has to be in you and me. We could tap into that. Omnipotent, all-powerful, and omniscient, all-knowing. These are just logical things that many don't think to ask. So what is the true knowledge of God? Well, that's love, and that's compassion, and that's also letting others have their own opinions and not forcing ourselves on others, not ruling over others. Yeshua was all about giving us the keys to Christ consciousness, not a blood sacrifice. As much as you've been taught it's all about blood sacrifice, think about it. Blood sacrifice. Think about the Aztecs and others that have been said to cut out the hearts of people they captured in war, and others as well, when they needed blood sacrifice to appease the gods. Who were those gods? What type of beings demand blood sacrifice? Ask yourself that. This is just logic 101. It's pretty simple. Be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil just means the adversary, prowls around like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. Submit yourselves therefore to God, resist the devil and he will flee from you. It's very true, because source is within us. Now, if you submit yourselves therefore to the source that's within you, kindle the God fire that's within you. Recognize that the source of all creation resides in you, in your holy temple, your body, and also beyond this physical body. Wouldn't that make you feel a little differently about yourself? Maybe you have a little bit more self-worth than you thought. Now, the adversary wants you to think you're worthless, that you're a sinner, inherently no good, and you would be burning forever in torment just because you're you, just because you exist. That's not the case at all. And again, whatever we focus on, we give energy to. And yes, in these times, we focused on a lot of negative news that's coming in. But that's as a method of preparation for what's coming. If we look to what's happening in France right now, if you don't have certain documentation, you're not even getting into a grocery store. We had talked about this. This is coming all over. This is part of the bigger plan. So, what are we really, really fighting here? It's pretty obvious that the leadership of the world is not the leadership of the world, and people are waking up to that. We could see it. It's all been just a puppet show. And then we look back and we see these pictures of these gigantic humanoid beings with smaller humans, hands tied behind their backs, tied together at the neck. Why does the good book condone slavery? And it does. And there's many places where you could see it. Slaves submit to your masters. Even in the New Testament, it talks about it. The slave system when giants were upon the earth. Why don't they want us talking about giants at all? Why don't they? Why do they always put disclaimers up when we say the Anunnaki word or Ijiji word? Somebody had said, and this somebody is basically. I mean, we could see that this person is totally one of them working for the system. making comments like, said basically, so you think the Anunnaki left their kids behind on this planet to be at the bottom of the system? I mean, that statement didn't even jive. The ones that are in control are the ones we would call the Igigi. The ones that rebelled against the Anunnaki said they didn't want to do the physical work anymore. And yeah, Zecharia Sitchin is not the only one to have translated these works. There's hundreds of thousands of these cuneiform writings in circulation, and many people have translated them. They give us the same basic stories. But we also hear these stories in many other traditions. We hear it over on the African continent, talking and knowing that humans come from the Pleiades and Lyra, and that there are reptilian beings that live inside the earth. We see that over in the American Southwest as well, from indigenous people that recognize the same thing. The Cherokee, they know about the same thing as well. It's global. There's always been different beings looking down on us, looking down on us. Green Lantern was an interesting movie, and one of the things they got pretty right is this depiction, because the ones that do rule over us, this council of basically what is ancestors of Igigi, they're not Homo sapiens sapiens, guys. They are humanoid, but they're not Homo sapiens sapiens. They look a lot like this. This is pretty accurate. Much bigger heads. They have amazing powers compared to most people. Can actually, well, make people do things they don't want to do with the power of their mind. They could also levitate things. This is the council that watches and actually rules this planet. It's not Homo sapiens sapiens. This is who the Homo sapiens report to. And these beings report up the line. They still go up to the Anunnaki. Also, the Anunnaki report to the Draco. The Draco reports to this AI intelligence, which in many ways is trying to just simply assimilate in a very Borg-like manner. Last night they were showing me this paperwork, or it looked like a legal document. And what was interesting was it was an agreement that expires in 2025. We go back to these agendas, and we've talked about this, and I've talked about this, kind of hinting to you guys for years. We don't know what type of galactic treaties end when. And if we did, then everything would make so much more sense. Let's take your biblical prophecies that people will look at and say, this proves the Bible is right, even though there are prophecies from other traditions all over the world, because we all have these abilities to tap in and see timelines. That's a natural ability. Well, does it mean because, this mark of the beast looks to be coming out in reality that it was the creator of the multiverse that gave us all these truths? Or is it just simply part of the script that they know is going to play out when the end of a treaty is near? And they know what they're going to do because they've done it so many times before. They view humans as inferior. And yet they're the ones that are stuck. They're the ones that are living in fear, controlling in fear, living in fear, can't get any higher than where they are. They're envious of us. These dark souls of time truly envy real life. They're not alive anymore. They're just existing. They're just shells. They're really to be pitied in so many ways. And as long as we can avoid certain things, which we've talked about, we don't want to be absorbed into their Borg. Then what's dawning for us in just years away, short years, again, the worst of it is right ahead of us, now till 2025. Then the new dawn is going to start to dawn upon the earth. it's going to be the beginning of a new era. It probably will take another 5 years to totally start to really get rid of existing power structures and start to heal the planet. So we do have a lot still ahead of us. We have to look at it like a marathon, and we will get to the finish line, and we will manifest this beautiful 5D version of Earth that will reside for all those who can stand long and resist the temptation to merge with the Borg, to give in to the Borg. The Galactics are helping all the star seeds, all the light workers. They have been utilizing their technologies to drain off the dark forces that are accumulating this, again, a very, very strong hint in so many ways. We go to the movie Prometheus when the giant takes this dark substance into his body that destroys his DNA. That's a huge clue right there. You can't get any more just right there in your face. And again, you could have a patent done on certain hybrids. Like if you were the first person to, make a hybrid of a pit bull and a chicken, you could literally get the patent on that. Who owns patents? A lot of it's individuals, a lot of it's corporations. The real power structure behind the structure we see. So you guys got to hang on because we do have help. Help is coming. Treaties are expiring. We just have to hang on through this darkest time that's really right in front of us now to make it to that finish line. Complete the marathon. We can do it, especially together. Thank you guys for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. Also, thank you for your support with medicinal foods. There's a link at the top of every video. Think in terms when you're stocking up on things of nutritional value and shelf life. Think nutritional value first and foremost. I know it's easy to go for those taste buds, but I love lasagna. Look at the labels, see what's in it. Nothing artificial. Look out for all the things we've been talking about. Think nutritional value first and foremost. Again, your body is a holy temple. And source itself resides within that body. God bless and namaste.